Welcome to Windows on the World. I'm Mark Windows. This show brings you cutting-edge news, empowering information and no conspiracy theories. We will be watching those who are watching us, watching the people's voice. We will be covering a wide variety of interlinked and fascinating subjects on this and future shows. We want you to be part of the show, so do phone in. The People's Voice has brought geoengineering and the issue of chemtrails to a wider public. We will be updating the work so far on next week's show. This week saw the police state in action against students protesting in London about the corporate takeover and loss of facilities through privatisation and the education system. So we have corporate education, corporate police and corporate government. Since last week's show on due process and the erosion of all our rights through the administrative courts, we have some very interesting information to bring to you in the forthcoming weeks. Please contact us if you have any stories which we may be able to cover in future shows. On today's show, we will be looking into ancient technology. We are all familiar with megalithic sites around the world which have huge stone structures. Many of these, including the pyramids and Baalbek stones, could not have been moved or shaped by even modern technology. The anomalous structures around the world do not fit conventional history. The elongated skulls of Peru and Bolivia and the red-haired giants, which have been found all over the world, also do not fit conventional evolution theory. The megalithic sites of Britain and its interlinking ley lines also suggest that the sites of our stone circles were not just there for astrological reasons, to chart and celebrate the birth and symbolic death of the sun or astrological alignments. After much research, it now appears that the alignment of ancient stones had as much, if not more, to do with an energy grid and the transformation and control of Earth energy as it did with astrological alignment. Brian Forster has been researching the elongated skull phenomenon and the pre-Inca megalithic sites for a decade. He has been making videos, writing books and arranging tours of ancient megalithic and Inca sites in Peru. This from Brian's site. The Inca are believed to have come from the Tiahuanaco area of Lake Titicaca at about 900 AD and settled in Cuzco about 200 years later. Conventional academics insist that they founded Cuzco and built everything called Inca. However, the glaring variations in construction techniques that we find in what is left of pre-Hispanic Cuzco tell a different story. Over the forthcoming weeks, Brian will tell us what he has discovered about the technology used to create these structures and also give an examination of the longhead of South America, a bizarre race who often had red hair and were of unknown origin. They had incredible megalithic walls, advanced technology and strange energies that are still present there. Here is our first interview with Brian. Brian, welcome to Windows on the World. Your book, Lost Technology of Peru and Bolivia, talks about this site that you came across particularly. Is that correct?
Well, that's true. The thing is that on my very first trip to Peru, visiting Inca country, which is, the area around Cusco, I noticed automatically that there were very great differences between so-called Inca constructions. Some of them were very simplistic in terms of field stone being stacked on top of each other with adobe mud. And then next to that site, you would have buildings or sections of walls where you have what looked like machine-cut stone without any mortar and so precisely close to each other that the stones, you can't even fit a human hair in between. And so obviously I saw this as an anomaly, and through time been able to figure out that the Inca civilization were not capable of some of the buildings and walls that are attributed to them.
Yeah, that's right. I've watched your videos, and that's, you make that point very, very clearly, because you look at this the megalithic stones, which are huge and almost like welded together. Then you go into the Inca stuff, which is not really as good, and then you get to the later Spanish stuff, which is just like, compared to the ancient stuff, a complete bodged job, isn't it, really?
It is, and actually one has to take into account that the first masons, etc., that were brought to Peru in the 16th century would not have been the great experts from Spain. I mean, people wouldn't have a tendency to want to leave the old world, like Spain, for the new world, unless they were in, reasonably dire straits. And any successful stonemason would probably stay in Spain. So you wouldn't have had the experts showing up in Cusco to build the colonial city. And as you stated, the thing is that with the Inca work, we see Bronze Age technology that the Inca had, and that meant that they weren't really able to cut hard stone, so they depended upon the use of clay mortar and roughly shaped stone in order to build most of their constructions.
It's kind of anomalous within conventional history, isn't it?
Well, definitely, because the thing is that most scholars, archaeologists and historians will basically say that all of Cusco was built by the Inca prior to the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century. But the more that I travel through Cusco, the more that I have guests visiting, the more we're able to see individually and as a group that there are much finer constructions, much older than the Inca period, which would maybe go back 1,000 years. We've had experts such as Robert Schock looking at some of the work, and other geologists, and they simply can't figure out how a Bronze Age culture could have been able to move multi-ton blocks and fit them together with such fine precision that, again, you can't fit a human hair in between these stones. Some of these walls are 6 feet thick, and yet, again, you can't fit a credit card, a piece of paper, or anything like that in between many of the blocks.
And also, the dating of a lot of these megalithic structures seems to be very vague as well, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and there are parallels between Peru, Bolivia, and ancient Egypt, too, because, of course, the Great Pyramids are said to have been built by the dynastic Egyptians, using bronze chisels and stone hammers. The same excuse is given in Peru because that's what's found in the archaeological record. But the problem is that we've been depending too long, upon archaeologists exclusively, and not allowing people like stonemasons, geologists, and other experts in different fields to look at that or at these things. And that's what I'm actively engaged in, is a multidisciplinary look at these. And the more that I have these experts look, the more that we are able to basically shatter the concept that the Inca were responsible for high precision technology, which was impossible to a Bronze Age culture such as theirs.
In the Inca city of Cusco, this is a very common way that the Inca would build a wall. They would shape the stone and put the stones together, and then they would put adobe mud in between as a mortar. Later, the Spanish arrived, and the Spanish would mix straw and adobe mud, and they would make walls like this, which then they would paint. On the other hand, we have that. And this is what is ascribed to the Inca. However, how in the course of 300 years do you go from this kind of building to that? Or from that kind of building to this kind? It seems the most logical thing that happened was that this wall existed possibly thousands of years before the Inca existed, and they inherited this.
Well, thanks, Brian, for being on Windows on the World, and look forward to speaking to you very soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Researcher and lecturer on intervention theory and curator of the anomalous Star Child skull, Lloyd Pye, passed away earlier this week. Lloyd's lecture, Everything You Know Is Wrong, and his books on hominids and theory of intervention, including the idea of genetic manipulation of humans, was as detailed as his research on the different types of hominids, the ones who were inhabiting this planet. I spoke to fellow researcher Brian Forster about Lloyd's work and why it will be continued. So when did you start working with Lloyd?
Actually, I contacted Lloyd about 2.5 years ago, just because I knew he was doing DNA testing of the Star Child skull, and I was interested in having the elongated skulls tested. And so at first he was kind of apprehensive about, he kept asking me who I was, etc. But over a period of time, we became, quite close in contact. We contacted each other once a week, and his geneticist was sent samples of the elongated skulls, which are being processed. And so we developed quite a good online relationship, and we're actually planning on having a tour this coming August, because he was fascinated by the elongated skulls and hadn't really had a chance to look at them in person.
Yes, I think that's great, Brian, that you two made contact, because you're obviously carrying this work forward, and that's great.
The important thing is that when he knew he was was very ill, he passed on the Star Child to a group who are taking care of the ongoing research now. And so I'm also in direct contact with his geneticist, who will be doing the DNA testing of the elongated skulls of Peru. So I think the really important thing is that his legacy will continue and expand, and it's not going to be a case that he will disappear from the history books. I for one will make sure that his legacy becomes stronger, because of the access to incredibly modern high-tech equipment that we will be able to utilize. We'll be able to get very good results for a very low cost, using the most updated equipment that exists in the United States.
Well, that's great. And Lloyd was also known for his hominid research, which was absolutely groundbreaking in some ways, because he came up with something that was highly probable, especially with his research into the hominids and the possible genetic modification of Homo sapiens sapiens.
Well, very much so. And the thing is, in his books, he writes in a very good style, so that anybody can understand what it is that his theory covers. It's not like he's using too much scientific nomenclature and wording. So I've of course read all of his books and find his theories not only feasible but probable as well.
Indeed, so do I. His lecture, Everything You Know Is Wrong, was one of the best of its kind, I think.
Definitely.
So, in other words, the work of Lloyd Pye and his research will live on through people like yourself. I'd like to thank you for that, Brian, and we'll speak to you very soon on Windows on the World.
Absolutely my pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much.
Here is part of an exclusive interview I did with Lloyd. There are also some great short introductions to Lloyd's work on the YouTube channel Land of the Free UK.
Humans do not fit in the flowchart of life on Earth for 20 million years. We just don't fit. We clearly appear at 200,000 years ago. Our genes say we appear at 200,000 years ago. The Sumerians say they created us at 200,000 years ago. Our genes in our bodies show clearly that we've been genetically engineered. Again, all things that I deal with in considerable detail. The problem is, if you accept that alien reality is real, this is the problem with mainstream science. As soon as they have to acknowledge UFOs are aliens, or Bigfoot for that matter, this is why they keep all of these things in limbo, in intellectual limbo, by ridicule and ignoring, is that as soon as aliens are real, or Bigfoot is real, or hominoids are real, that means that Darwinian evolution is not true, that humans didn't evolve on Earth. And so we lose that special place that we have in the scheme of things now, just like people used to have a special place in the scheme of things, that Earth was the center of the known universe. We now live with the conceit, the lie, the conceit, that we humans are the center of the biological universe. That's what we have to give up. In the 1500s, they had to give up their place at the center of everything. Now we have to do the same thing. We have to give up our imagined place as the biological center of the universe. And that's going to be traumatic for a lot of people. But we can't get to the next phase of whatever we're supposed to be developing into until we come to that point of recognition and understanding. And so that's what I work toward. That's what I consider my job, or one of my jobs, is to move everybody to that point of understanding and acceptance that we're not alone. And not only are we not alone now, we never have been. And some of those people that share everything with us, share the universe with us, and particularly our galaxy, share our galaxy with us. Those individuals, one type of them created us. Another type of them created the whole planet, terraformed the whole planet to be what it is. And they're not the same. The people that created us are very much later than the terraformers. The terraformers started at around 4 billion years ago, and whoever and whatever they are, they have no concept of time. As we understand time, time is meaningless to them. There is no time. There's no time. If you can look at a seething ball of magma and say that in 3 or 4 billion years, we're going to have this place really shaped up and looking good. In 3 or 4 billion years, as we understand time, it means to them, time means nothing. It just means nothing. So that is where I think we are, and that's what I push toward and push everyone toward understanding, is that we need to make some profound changes in our understanding of who and what we are if we're going to ever hope to get toward the truth of anything.
How do you think the public could react if they found out that they indeed had been genetically modified by a superior race who put them on Earth, who were watching what they were doing, monitoring, and basically keeping them in a prison?
Well, I think when people find it out, when people understand it at the level that I understand it, and that others who work in this field understand it, you know, your first feeling is that basically we're not much more sophisticated than lab rats, really. For all that we think we are, to them, we're just like lab rats. But and what I really compare it to is, to them, we are like infants crawling around on the floor with dirty diapers, just oblivious to any and everything that's really true about their environment. We need to move to a point where we get up off our knees, clean our diapers, become like, you know, at least to the level of children going to kindergarten. And I think that we do that by acknowledging that they're there, that okay, we now understand and accept that we did not evolve here, that we are not the end-all be-all of the universe or the galaxy, that we are just members of a community, of an intergalactic community. We understand that, we accept that, we know you're there, and we're willing to accept our own very, very diminished role in the grand scheme of things. If we get to that point, when we get to that point, I think that is when they will reveal themselves to us and say, okay, now that you're to this point of maturity in your development, we will now begin to help you to move along a little faster. And I think that they will have the technology to end our fuel problems, our dependence on petrochemicals, that they will be able to help us with some of our disease issues, maybe cancer. They will be able to help us correct some of the 4,000 plus genetic disorders that we have, and on and on. I think in the end it's going to be a very good thing for humanity as a whole. But in the short term, it's going to be very traumatic for a lot of people to have to acknowledge and admit that everything they believed and they were taught and have defended and fought for was just wrong, was just wasted effort, was really in the end just kind of stupid. And so that's going to be a hurdle that a lot of people have to overcome, and I think they will overcome it. But not until then will we make any real progress toward our actual, real, true future, which is part of a galactic community. And we're not going to get there until we get up off our knees and acknowledge that that's the truth, that we are part of a community. They're out there, and sort of ask them for help. And I think when we get that mature in our understanding of things, they will help us. They will appear and help us. I don't see a bad end for us. I don't see anybody coming down like Independence Day and just blowing us away. I don't see that. I see a good ending in the end.
Thanks very much, Lloyd.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Stephen Doros is a researcher who has worked as a stonemason whilst looking into telluric energy, the electrical charge running through energy lines around the planet. His experiments give insight into a worldwide energy grid and the way that energy can be channeled through stones. This, of course, ties in with the ley lines, including the St. Michael and Mary line and the Berlinus line. The British Isles have a huge network of standing stones. Some researchers believe that there is a worldwide energy grid which includes the Great Pyramid and megalithic sites around the world. The biggest secret could be free energy. Here is an introduction to telluric energy by Stephen Doros.
There's a telluric current line basically running that I've taped out so that everybody can see it, and I can show you. Basically, I've put in a square at the moment. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks in the corners. Okay, so basically what I've done is these lines, and I'll show you in a minute in another space in the garden, the average distance. They're normally about 8 to 10 foot apart, these, but what I've done, and it will make sense as we go through, is I've squashed these lines, 5 of them, into this square. So they're now running approximately 6 foot apart rather than 8 to 10 foot apart. Okay, the central one is the one that I've actually marked out. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm basically going to walk across from one side to the other, and all I'm asking for with the dowsing rods, and we'll explain more about the dowsing rods as well, but all I'm asking for is to indicate where there is a line of telluric current. Okay. As I walk forward, the lines cross. Okay. Now I'm now going to ask, which actual way do they flow? Okay, and it's in feeling they flow that direction. I'll carry on walking, and there's another one, and that's flowing to my, well, effectively flowing to my, to my left. And then there's the next one, which is the one I've taped, which is flowing to my right. The next one is flowing to my left, and the final one is flowing to my right. So there's 5 lines inside the grid. If I lifted up the cornerstones, these lines are effectively, you can push them and you can move them, which is what I think our ancestors knew how to do. You can push them and move them and put them where you want, but as soon as you effectively release and lift up the stone, literally, physically lift up the stone off the ground, the lines almost spring back to their original locations. The questions that I was asking 18 months ago in regards to this was about differing types of rock and how different rocks would have an influence on these telluric currents, how granite would have an influence, how dolerite, which they're both paramagnetic rocks, they're very influenced by magnetic fields, compared to things like a sandstone and limestone, which aren't unless they're wet, in which case they do become. So I was asking those questions a year ago. Now, in the process of dotting all the I's and crossing the T's insofar as how rocks can manipulate these lines, I've now gone back to a very simple questions. Okay, now at the moment I'm just looking at how rocks can move these lines. It doesn't matter what sort at the moment. It's just actually finding out the initial basic, basically how it works. Okay, the next questions, once I've gone through these series, will be then moving on to different types of rock and the different influences that will have. But at the moment we're keeping things very simple, just to show you basically how it all starts.
So, Stephen Doros, welcome to Windows on the World.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Great. I remember when we shot that video, and I was very, very drawn to what you were doing when we talked at a festival over the summer, because you described this telluric energy and how you can harness it and work with it and observe it.
That's right.
Very, very clearly. Can you tell me about how you got into dowsing and looking into this kind of technology?
I've always had an interest in the spiritual side of life, and I've always I read a book when I was a teenager by Alfred Watkins called The Old Straight Track, which was all about ancient what we call ley lines. And over the years, my interest has developed. I've always visited lots of Neolithic sites. I decided a few years ago to make myself a pair of dowsing rods out of literally a coat hanger. You know, 2 bits of coat hanger bent into an L shape. And then slowly, I had a few friends that were dowsers as well, and I taught myself how to use them. And I started wandering, and I started just walking the lines and seeing what I could actually find, you know, out there in our fields and on our hills. And then the interaction between that and all the different stones and rocks around the world. And it's one step at a time has led me through to sitting here with you today.
Well, looking at that video, it's very interesting because you're plotting where the telluric lines are. I mean, you plotted out where they were. And you also have this very interesting thing we're going to look at in the second video about rocks being able to take this telluric energy. Can you tell us a bit about how you came across that?
Telluric currents are basically a very, very low voltage current. They flow over the entire planet, and they're on average about around 8 to 10 feet apart. I mean, as you travel up higher into the hills and things like that, they actually squash together. But on average, 8 to 10 feet apart. But because electricity will want to travel through the most conductive material, if anything is creating resistance, it's faster for the electric current to actually flow around it. So this is how it first started, was me literally placing a lump of granite on a line and watching the line. You can follow it with the dowsing rods and actually watching it flip over to one side, so it moved out the way. If you then carried on moving the rock and pushing the rock across, the line would keep going around it, so you can actually stretch and elasticate.
We're going to see that in the next video, actually. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, because what you did was explain something that a lot of people have been unable to explain to me for a long time. In other words, that it takes the mystery out of the whole thing, and you're saying here's a little practical demonstration of what this is about. And obviously this technology has been around for thousands of years. We're looking at the stone circles that are all over the British Isles and the megalithic structures of the world and how they're interlinked. What do you think about that? Do you think there is some kind of worldwide energy grid?
It's been well documented that there is a grid. Personally, with my research at the moment, when most of my research has been out in the fields, so it's been out in open spaces. Okay, I'm not one of these people that does geopathic stress with houses where you get, you know, negative and positive energy lines crossing in houses. I've found in the fields the lines tend to run in one direction. I'm not personally picking up this grid formation in the fields itself. I think the grid formations will exist, but I think it's a man-made construct. We've placed that grid in, we've actually put it in there ourselves through our building, through our infrastructure over the last few hundred years. I think if we removed all of the houses and all of the roads, took all of that sort of off the planet, it would revert back to this effectively a standard model of lines running. So I think that we've actually caused these grids to develop, and we've caused with the houses the geopathic stress. So I think our ancestors were dealing with a very, very simple, simple
and purer kind of.
Yeah. You had a big open space. I'm interested in why stone sites, why sacred sites were built in places they are. If you rewind back a few thousand years ago, most of the UK was covered in forest. So these sites seem to be up in the high moorlands where obviously there weren't the trees. So you could manipulate and use these lines because it's the only place you can get at them. When they go into woods, and I've dowsed this before, where you have the lines running into the woods, and it's like they dissipate. So you get lots of tiny little lines, but then they gather again and form themselves back together again on the other side of the wood, and they carry on. So I think that's why our ancient ancestors used these massive open spaces, because it enabled them to gather together as many lines as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting because you know, tying in something that's been a mystery for so long into something very simple, I think is what we're trying to do today, and show people that this is a natural energy. It's there, that anyone can tap into it. And as far as dowsing goes, can you just tell us about that? Because there's no mystique about it, is there?
No. Dowsing's been around for thousands of years. It's still used. Modern prospectors use it. Water companies use it, and it's basically using a set of L-shaped rods. We are based on water. We're 70% water. Everything has a slight electrical charge to it, and everything has a slight frequency. So if you're walking along with a pair of dowsing rods and your intent and you're saying, right, I'm looking for water, the rods will pick up on the frequency of water. They'll pick up on that specific frequency. If you were looking for, say, gold, then the rods would ignore where the lines crossed on the water.
So our body's kind of, and our vibration and intent magnetises us to what we're looking for. Attracts us to what we're looking for, and this is not some kind of conspiracy theory, because it's still used by water companies today, and all sorts of corporations, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is, and it's when I've trained people how to dowse, and when you first start off with a pair of rods, if you're just walking along, you'll be picking up all kind of variations. It might be electromagnetic or water, but when you actually specifically say, I am looking for X, Y, or Z, then the rods will only cross on that point. And you can do experiments with water. You can put a bucket of water in front of you, and then you can ask to see, say, a telluric current, and it won't cross over the bucket. Yeah. So there's ways of training the rods. I mean, I now know that I can pick up a response from a left to a right with my rods.
As I showed in the video.
As I showed in the video.
These lines flow across the Earth. Now, they move around. They're not static. They move. They change direction from night to day. So a line that's currently flowing from left to right, come sunset, will switch around and start flowing the other direction. So they flow opposite directions day to night. So at the moment, you have a line that's crossing. All right, you have the little gateway in the middle that we've made, all right, and then we're back to just normal line here. So along here, this is all just normal line. Now, this is box standard blue lias. This is just local rock from Somerset. It's nothing flash or nothing. Let's just know the local rock to us. It's type of limestone. Okay, I've got a line in front of me. So as I move the dowsing rods forward, they cross. Move over this side, they cross. Okay, this line at the moment is flowing from right to left. Now I've got two copper pins. Put one in there, and this is effectively, it's just going to ground out the line and make a little gate. Okay, watch. Okay, your line is here. Right, go to the other side. The line is here. And when you go across the middle, now nothing happens. Nothing happens. Now watch. I've showed you that the lines move around the rocks. Okay. So what we're going to do is literally, I'm going to push a left-hand rock across the grass. I'm going to move the tape out the way as well in a moment. Move the tape out. Push the other side across. Now the line before basically ran up to the pins and got grounded out. Now because the lines basically they will move as you move the rocks. What we've now done is the line is now flowing back through. So if I go through the dowsing rods now, okay, you can see that the lines now move back over here. Okay. Now if I move the pins, I can do the pins again across, which is where the line is now flowing. Just move that one over a little bit more. And now when I go through, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I take the pins out from there, and there's your line. Okay, now what I'd like to do, I'm going to put the pins back where they were originally, because you'll like this bit. So now, at the moment, okay, you go through the gate, and there's your line over there. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to release the line. Remember, they are like bits of elastic, so we're going to release both sides. Okay, it's now seems to not over there. Lift up the pins, take the pins out, and all of a sudden the gateway in the middle
and there's your line back. So what we've done, the rocks, basically you can move the lines around things.
Hold that thought, Steve. We'll be back after the break. This is Windows on the World on Telluric Energy and the wisdom of the ancients on a Sunday morning. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Windows on the World this Sunday morning. We're talking about ancient technology. We have some here. Please phone in. It's 0203 714 2700. We want to hear from you. Our next guest is Mark Bennett. He is a respected investigative journalist and photographer covering the fringes of culture and science and contributing features to many publications, including Fortean Times, Skin 2 magazine and D, as well as editing his own avant-garde cyberculture magazine, Black Ice. He has piloted series for both BBC and Channel 4, along with acting as a consultant and camera expert for multiple programmes. He also has knowledge of free energy and ancient technology. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Hey, so you got in from Brighton okay?
Yep, it was sunny back then, but now it's dark.
Yeah, that could be something to do with the geoengineering, eh? But that's another show.
That's another show.
That's another show. So tell us a bit about yourself, Mark. You seem to have vast knowledge of many things, including ancient technology and ley lines, Organite.
Yeah. Well, I think I fundamentally, at the end of the day, I'm a practical person, and I want things in my hands that I can test, hold, and use.
Yeah.
So, for example, the Organite, a box was mailed to me by a friend up in Hereford who makes them. He actually made this one, and I read the stuff on the internet, and it was like mad. It's like, oh, you put it in the ground, it creates giant vegetables, and
okay,
just mad stuff. So I said, well, I don't have a garden, but I'll give it to my neighbor. He has a garden.
Yeah.
And had to wait till it grew, and came down and popped over and said, okay, well, what about, did the Organite produce any results? I said, oh, there's an improvement. So, oh, okay, that's good. Where are they? Oh, they're downstairs. The wife's going to pickle them. Okay. So I get out downstairs, and he was being conservative in his comments. The size of a beet had gone from being that size to the size of American softballs, and so on.
You wrote some articles on this, didn't you?
Yeah, featured for Fortean Times, which then appeared in GQ, India, for all places, and the American tabloid The Sun.
Yeah, well, just bringing Stephen back in here, because your research probably crosses over in quite a number of areas. What do you think about Organite, Stephen? Have you ever used it?
I haven't personally used it, but I do think that our ancestors knew about it.
Yeah.
When they've excavated places like Silbury Hill, it appears they've been built up in the same inorganic, organic layers that Organite uses.
Yeah.
And again, you can actually do the same with dissimilar metals, and it can lower the resistance of
Organite's kind of aluminium
through.
crystals and resin, though, isn't it? This modern day Organite.
Yeah, it's basically, I call it a macro circuit.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a circuit component that you'd have in your computer, just made really large to affect the environment around it.
Yeah. So just getting back to what we were saying before the break, Stephen, about just if you want to tidy that bit about what you were talking about, these concentric circles, and your experiences of the energy. So maybe Mark could come in with that.
The point I was just reaching was the fact that it was interesting for me to actually to see how this energy had been manipulated, and I could see exactly what had happened. But the fact that there was nothing happening in the circle, and then again I found out that the circle has been reconstructed, and so many of our ancient Neolithic and prehistoric sites have been reconstructed. Stonehenge has been rebuilt 3 times, or they've all been put back together by well-meaning Victorian scientists. But the moment when you lift a rock off the ground, the line will actually ping out the way. So it's no wonder that so many of our stone sites, we've got no idea what our ancients were actually doing, because basically we've tried to put them back together again, and all the charge effectively that you've put into it is dissipated.
But that wouldn't affect things like the Calanesh stones or Avebury, would it? Because those stones have always been there.
Those stones have always been there, yeah.
So it's like putting together an IKEA kit without the plans. And
Yes.
they haven't figured out how to do it properly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just one little step at a time, working out how they actually. I don't know why. This is the eternal question: why they actually did it. I haven't remotely got to that point yet, but the fact of how they actually managed to do it is what we're working towards now. We have a slight understanding of how they actually.
But the dowser I worked with went to a property, and he was dowsing bad energy lines, because when they cross, they create harmful gamma radiation.
Yeah.
Because of the frequencies, and that will cause cancer clusters in houses and so on.
Yeah.
In fact, there's technology which is mandatory in Germany to install in federal buildings to neutralize this, and it basically hijacks your internal power circuits, lights and cables and so on, and that turns that into a tuned circuits to neutralize these fields. Now, the dowser normally puts down metal rods, as one does. And he discovered, because this person, Whale 2, makes the Organite, he had Organite in the right places. And this thing did the same thing. So basically an artificial rock in some ways.
Yeah.
An artificial circuit to modify these energy lines.
I'll be intrigued.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because we're bringing in the work of this guy, William Reich, which is Organite, which is quite a recent thing, really, isn't it?
Yep, there's been some variations around. An original one would have been honey and minerals, rocks and quartz, so on. So that could be an ancient one. Yeah. Tree resin also has been used, because it'll you want a bit of compression going on.
Yeah.
There's the original inventor in Germany, whose name I've forgotten, sadly, and then Carol Croft came along and added the crystal in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And that created an effect and amplified the effect somewhat.
Well, we're talking really about kind of curing bad energy, but also manipulation of energy. And this ties in really with what this whole thing about the wisdom of the ancients is about. We get lots of documentaries telling us, is it possible that, or could it be? And on a practical level, this manipulation or this use of earth energy seems to be what was going on in all these ancient cultures. Would you agree with that?
Sure, and there's a reason why. It's interesting, because to approach a lot of questions, you have to ask what they're not asking. Yeah. So in medicine, for example, what do they not ask? And basically they summed it up in the matrix. Yeah. We are copper top batteries, but we're not actual solid copper top batteries. We're wet cells. We are electrical beings.
Yes.
Our brains are electric, our hearts are electric, blah, blah, blah. And if you started to look into the lost technologies, the suppressed technologies from the 1900s, Tesla included, you'll find out that, hey, they can cure things with electricity.
Yeah.
So the basic either is voltage, some slight voltage and frequency based, or it's more complex and it's just high power voltage.
That's good. That's very, very interesting. This is Windows on the World, Sunday morning, 0203 714 2700. We're now going to go to a video featuring Brian Forster talking about a possible ancient cataclysm which may have something to do with our loss of memory of who we are.
What we're learning more and more, and recently, is that the end of the last ice age was not a gradual event whereby the poles melted over the course of 1,000 or 2,000 years. The more that a multidisciplinary approach is looking at the end of the ice age, the more evidence there is that the poles had a massive melting, both North and South Pole, that may have only taken 3 years as the result of some kind of galactic event. It might have been an ejection of plasma from the sun. It might have been an ejection of energy from a galactic center. But it's possible that the oceans of the world rose by 350 feet over the course of 3 years or less, and we can more or less pinpoint the date or timeline now to 9,700 BC, or 11,700 years ago. And this is being backed up by such authors, again, as Dr. Robert Schoch, who redated the age of the Sphinx, Dr. Paul Laviolette, and others. I think what we're looking at 11,700 years ago, plus or minus, a few hundred years, is we're looking at the global flood, not only as spoken of in the Bible, but spoken of by at least, if not more than 200 different indigenous cultures all around the world. They all speak of this horrific event that happened that destroyed much, if not all, of their society as well as others. And that's where we enter the idea that mythology actually is not mythology, that when people speak of this ancient event, they're speaking of real history that happened. But the problem we have is that we've been indoctrinated into this concept by most academics that civilization started 6,000 years ago or less. And that is our biggest stumbling block.
Indeed it is, because we don't seem to go further back than Sumeria, or as they call it in the British Museum, Acadia. They do refer to that period as Akkadian. But yes, there's no record of anything before that, and even that particular period of 6,000 years ago is very fragmented in the way it's presented to the public, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. There is some. Obviously, Sumeria did exist beginning at that time. The Indus Valley was developing around that time. China was developing around that time. Egypt, more or less, was developing around 5,000 years ago. But again, the confusion is that many of these academics are so fixed in their concept that we went from hunter-gatherers to suddenly, clustering and developing agriculture. And then out of nowhere, you have the Giza pyramids being built, which today would not be impossible to build, but they would be an incredible engineering achievement. And yet we're saying that over the course of a few hundred or maybe 1,000 years, people went from hunter-gatherers to building something 500 feet tall, employing 2.3 million megaton blocks, and built with such precision that, again, you can't fit a piece of paper in between these blocks. It's just, at this point, this whole idea is becoming so ridiculous that I'm glad that there are many of us looking farther back in time and engaging with engineers and other experts in different fields to look at this from a multidisciplinary approach.
Absolutely, and that's something, the whole area of this, we're going to be looking at in the forthcoming weeks on Windows on the World with you, Brian. I hope you're going to become a regular contributor because we have so much to talk about, but thanks for today. And is there anything you'd like to say? Have you got a book out at the moment?
Actually, my latest book is about the Nazca lines, because again, they have been thought of as either being the constructions of primitive people or that aliens did them. And so I actually go through all of the major and minor theories as to how they were made, who made them, why and when. And that book, as well as my other 12 books, can be found at Amazon.com. I have more than 680 videos on YouTube under my name, and also the latest and probably best of my videos are located at www.hiddenincavideos.com.
You also do tours, don't you, Brian?
Yes, my wife and I do tours. We do basically 3 major tours of Peru per year, one with the company in the UK called Megalithomania. We also do 1 tour per year of Egypt. We're going back at the end of March because the evidence of lost ancient technology in Egypt is far more profound and actually far more obvious than it is in Peru. We see lots of evidence of giant saw marks, high-speed drill activity, etc., that could not have been in existence during the Bronze Age times of the pharaonic Egyptians. And then we also do minor tours with 2, 3, or up to 6 and maybe 10 people sporadically, but we don't have it. The tours are not full time because I have to be in the field as much as possible to learn as much as possible to be able to share with you and your audience and the world as much as possible.
That's great. Well, thanks, Brian, for being on Windows on the World, and look forward to speaking to you very soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, that was Brian Forster, a great researcher, and he's been looking at the elongated skulls of Peru and the anomalous architecture, which is pre-Incan. We're going to discuss now whether there is a collective amnesia which has made us forget about this ancient technology, and maybe we're just rediscovering it. What do you think about that, Stephen?
Yeah, I think there was. I think I hate to bring religion into it, but I think the church suppressed a lot of it going back over the years. I think religion is you've lost the natural way of actually of being with our planet.
I think it's confused people and shut things down. That's my personal view. We have a caller, Josephine. Josephine from France. Are you there?
I am. Hello there.
Hello, Josephine. I'll just turn the monitor up so the guests can hear it. So, welcome to Windows on the World.
Thanks.
So, what have you got to say to us today?
Well, I'm finding it all really interesting, and especially about how churches were built on ancient sites, as regards of the energy, etc. These sacred sites, that for sure we can't really explain exactly what their functions were, but it's really fascinating. And as regards to the ley lines, I have a memory of some family friends that found out their house was built on ley lines, and there was paranormal activity in that they had kind of ghosts and poltergeists, etc. And I was wondering if your guests had ever looked at that link with the energy, the negative energies and paranormal activity.
That's very interesting, Josephine. Yeah, we'll bring that up now with Mark, because he's itching to get going on that one, aren't you?
Yeah, during our research, we were trying to track down something called Atom Site from mid-Wales. Now, this guy was a researcher a builder, an engineer on Concord, who found a mineral in the Modris estuary of Wales, who put wires into and get voltage out. So basically a free energy rock of some sort. And when touring around that area, I was asking questions about, are odd phenomena in Wales, in the mountains, the Cadras Idris and so on. And people were saying, a friend of ours built a house and they hadn't connected their electrical grid yet. And all the lights were on.
Yeah.
And phenomena, and there's a lot of UFO phenomena around the area as well. So the ambient energies were palatable and usable in some way. Yeah. So it gets into the other aspects of how to harness the energies. We just don't have the tools to use it, or we're using the wrong model. Yeah. So these things become very predictable if you know what system they're operating under. And if you don't know how it's working, it's magic. Ooh, it's woo-woo. No, it's not. You're just not looking well enough.
That's right. That's right. It's just this harnessing of energy, really. And I think that's a very important point, Josephine, that you've brought up there. Have you got anything else to say to us today? Are you still there?
Yeah, I am. And it also reminds me of the pyramids in Egypt, because they in the tombs, like right in the innards of the pyramids where there would have been no daylight, they were able to paint beautiful murals, etc. And apparently there was no ash residue found, so they weren't using lanterns with fire to illuminate to be able to do these paintings. So some people think that they had other energy sources to make light.
Well, I think we just got a bit of feedback there, Josephine. But that's very interesting, because there is this theory, and I believe that there is something in this theory that the pyramids are part of some energy grid. My research has taken me into that direction. For instance, when Siemens, the electrical guy, went up there at the turn of the century, he went with a guide and he had a wine bottle with paper wrapped around it. And they did some kind of experiment, and his guide got knocked off the top of the Great Pyramid because of the shock. But it appears that the limestone, which is all degraded, when it was wet, was an incredible conductor. Have you got any ideas on that, Mark?
Sure. It's also why you have all your copper piping and electrical supplies in your house and your radiators grounded, because there's an electrostatic charge differential between floor level and top of a hill.
Absolutely.
So re-listen to Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel, and you'll see it in a different light, because it sounds like an Oregon energy discharge that induced a out-of-body experience, visions, and who knows what else. And keep in mind, you don't have to go on top of the hill for this. You can actually make shape patterns that will have the same effect.
Yes. Out-of-body experiences is something I've studied quite deeply, and Yeah, we're basically talking about we are you know, we're biological
Wet cells.
receivers and transmitters, basically.
Sure.
So it's how we harness and channel this energy, and the idea that we've lost a lot of this. I mean, with modern living and the programming that we've undergone, basically.
Well, it's corporate branding.
Yeah.
Via religion.
Very good. Yeah.
Via religion, really. Basically, we were saying, well, you have to buy this one, this one, this one,
Yeah.
or that one. Oh, and ours comes with a free bloody crown cross, and this one comes with a big fat guy.
Correct.
Actually, if you look at the big fat guy in a certain way, and you know what a Mandelbrot set looks like, you'll go, holy crap, Buddha's Mandelbrot set.
Yeah, hold that thought. It's 0203 714 2700. 0203 714 2700. This is Windows on the World with my very special guests today, Mark Bennett and Stephen Doros. So Stephen, bringing you back into the conversation here, as far as the timelines and dating goes, there seems to be this idea that between 10 and 11,000 years ago, there was this huge catastrophe that wiped out a lot of the knowledge and also the memory of previous civilization. What do you think about that?
There seem to be little tiny indicators dotted throughout the world, especially with the stonework.
Yeah.
With the polygonal stonework we saw in Brian's video, there's you can find traces of that in very early stonework of Egypt. Like it almost looks like pre-pyramid stonework. South Africa, Japan, they've all got a virtually identical way of putting the actual rocks together. The common held thesis with those rocks is the reason they were designed like that is to actually make them earthquake proof, which infers a long-standing, you know, they're there for thousands and thousands of years. So there is evidence of an ancient culture, but there is also a massive amount in virtually all religions. There is a great flood of some description. Over 250 different religions, I watched a video a few days ago about it, have all got a flood myth in there somewhere, as though there was a giant cataclysm of some sort. There was an earlier one when Santorini blew up, which was 3,000 years ago, 3,000 years, something.
Yeah, they go 3,000, then
but then there was this, the big one, which is the. But there's also there is scientists out in Japan have found evidence of a massive a gamma ray burst, effectively, well, from the sun, which hit us around about the same time. So that again might be somehow ties it in.
So we're rediscovering ancient lost technology to some degree. Do you agree with that, Mark?
Sure, but if we're not allowed to look at electromedicine, because it's a subject that they don't talk about, even though they check your heart and whether you're alive or not with EKG, EEG, but have a Google for the Cali patent from Einstein College of Medicine.
Sorry, run that by me again.
Researchers of the Einstein College of Medicine,
right.
Mr. Cali and et al., discovered that if you put 200 microamperes across blood, it disinfects.
Yeah. And
200 microamperes isn't much.
Cleaning blood is something we're going to talk about, isn't it?
Well, also keep in mind this basically, the systems they developed reversed HIV and does a treat on other diseases.
Yeah.
And you can build one yourself now, or if you want to get one off the shelf, here's one from.
Okay.
There's not much to it. It runs on a 9-volt
We're going to be
battery.
back after the break with Mark talking about this amazing contraption. This is Windows on the World. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Windows on the World this Sunday morning, 0203 714 2700. Please phone in, that's 0203 714 2700. Here is a video shot at the Chemtrails Awareness Day. This video features Organite, which we've talked about, which is a mixture of resin, aluminium shavings and crystal. The featured technology containing this is known as a chembuster. We're also going to talk about chembusters next week. It's believed to affect and neutralise chemtrails. I'm here with Betsy and Philippe, and Philippe has a contraption called a chembuster. Can you tell us how that works, Philippe?
Okay, I try in easy words how it works. So actually what they spray in our air is aluminium barums and a couple of other metals. So if these metals cannot attach to the oxygen what's in the air, they will go pressed up in space. And that happens when we have this positive loaded, I would say, ions. What's not really what it is, it's more a soft electron. So if we can clean this guy and make the ionosphere loaded with minus load, it doesn't happen. That's the basic idea behind this. It's resin, metals. You see
resin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Layers.
Yeah.
You have crystals inside. Wait, I'll show you also. It's a copper coil and you have a crystal. There are rock crystals, and the top is the plus pole and the down is the minus pole. Okay. So that gives the energy direction. So what happens in the tube is the vacuum, and that's what draws it. It's essentially a free energy device.
These are good for dispersing sort of electromagnetic stuff as well, aren't they, really?
Yes, of course.
That's what orgon's for. So
yes, which is why we make the pendants, which kind of gives you a bit of almost like a field around you as well.
Yeah. So they disperse radiation, basically?
Certainly.
Okay. So how could people make these, or have you got a website to go to where they can buy one?
And we're also looking to put together a workshop, a chembuster workshop, to be able to explain the technology behind it, because Philippe takes not only the works of Reich, but also the works of people like Lakhovsky, his coil, and also Schauberger, the understanding of water, how we're built up, to be able to create a system which has an immediate effect and also will not have any negative effect on us, unlike another Donkraft
is the one who created this one of resin. That's not right, actually. So that's Donkraft system, this
an American
But we modified this system because his original system has 6 pipes, and these copper tubes are really expensive. If you have to buy 6 of these pipes, you already pay 120 pounds alone. So if you have one tube, it's easier to afford it for everybody.
So what effect would that have on a chemtrail?
So you can change the weather with something like this.
And they don't happen, actually. So
are you saying it neutralizes the metallic particles? Is that what it does?
So the negative. When he said the minus ions, he's talking about the negative ion.
Chemtrails get sprayed in first place to act on the ionosphere. That's the sphere of ions in a height of 10,000 meters above our head. So there you have streams, what we talk about the Earth grid. And if these streams are blocked, it's like a canal. What's blocked, the weather cannot flow properly anymore. So if there are enough minus ions, the particles can't fall down and they will get pushed into space, actually, because they are so fine. And the worst is not just the particles, but the more.
This could be like a kind of reverse harp.
Yes, actually, yes. If you have the ionosphere working, the harp doesn't work.
So just to give you an example, because this one, we have a 3-meter tube, which gets attached to this, which we figured is easier to drive down without such a thing. But we had for a couple of months, it was only like this, and we were quite impressed to see the effect that it still had and what it dissolved in the air. Because Philippe has been working with these for a number of years and has been studying the sky and how to, putting in the direction of the wind and understanding what it does and how to differentiate the flows. But when we put the tube in, within 2 days we had it was the other week, those 2 days of those lightning storms, and then within a week we had that massive storm that came in. And I'm not saying that trying to take credit for this massive thing, but it's very interesting how with this one, and also a friend that we work with up in Hartlepool, up in Yorkshire, who's got a much bigger one that we built with them. And so if you look at the radar, you see London, and up there in Middlesbrough you actually see how the clouds go in, and it disperses over London and up here. So we can see a noticeable effect from, and I'm new.
So it's not just the government changing the weather; it's you two as well.
It's a bit of a big. Well,
no, we say we help nature to help herself.
You can take some various methods to clean out the particles from your body that so you're not as much of a receptor to the harp and all these other fun things that they love to mess with us with, and with simple devices that one can build with guidance, and just a little bit of maintenance as far as moving you have to move the location every few days.
Yeah, it depends really on the situation. I mean, if you have time, I would suggest every 4 hours, apart the time you sleep, of course. What's interesting to know is, as longer the tube, as bigger the vacuum, and as quicker that flows, the whole thing. Of course, as more you have here, as bigger this thing is, as more it can transform.
Did you bury this, or did you just...
No.
No, you can just put it on the ground.
You put it on the ground.
Yeah, there's no real need. Some people bury it, but the thing is, then you make hundreds of holes in your soil. Because
you ruin the lawn, couldn't it?
Well, because you have to keep moving it, because you put it in the soil, that does have an effect, but then if it stays there too long, and then it goes stagnant. So then everything just... So, yeah. But, yes,
it's a bit like acupuncture for the sky. So what's important, and when it works the best, is when you pose it against the wind stream, because the orgone energy flows against the wind. The orgone energy is highly magnetic to the oxygen. The oxygen, we all know, is highly magnetic. So, and this energy is also highly magnetic. If we read the books of Reich, that's what we find out. So it flows against the wind. So if you place it against the wind, you have the quickest flow and best reaction. But you really need to observe the sky for longer to really see the differences. But you see the differences instantly as you place up a chembuster. Normally, the first reaction you get is a black helicopter.
Why don't you tell Mark how you and your team worked in Luxembourg and what you did to the radiation levels of the country, which the country takes credit for now, but...
Yeah, well, I actually come from Luxembourg, of course. So we worked there and we placed chembusters over the whole country. What's not hard, Luxembourg is quite small, right? But still we had like 10 chembusters over the whole country, so we have the radiation level to 0 down now. Because orgone is the natural counter energy of radiation. So we had quite impressive results also there. People just don't notice it because they don't look in the sky or they don't have the time. Actually, if you see the cloud seeding, nobody who doesn't look a half an hour in the sky can see how these clouds appear slowly. So the temperatures are obvious, but then they get told it's contrails. But scientifically complete and big nonsense. I mean, there's no backup for all this.
So the criminality went down, and there's some very...
Yes, that's another effect of orgone energy, is that really people get softer.
Philippe and Betsy for the People's Voice.tv.
The People's Voice will continue to cover the chemtrails phenomenon and all issues connected with it. We will be talking more about William Reich, Schauberger, Bob Beck-Zappa and Organite, and of course ancient technology. With the corporatisation of the music business and less outlets for original talent, our next guest continues to perform and push the boundaries. She refers to herself as the Last Chanteuse. She's Anne Pigalle. The Last Chanteuse came all the way from Paris to London to tell the tale. She grew up with punk, recorded with Trevor Horn and Michael Nyman, worked on a film project in America with Donald Cammell, has had exhibitions in London and has been very influential on the art pop world for the last 10 years. After her latest self-release, Madam Sex, she decided to make a new album. She has created a fundraiser on Sponsume ending on the 23rd of December, and she needs your support. She hates the world of generic and stolen ideas, and with this new album she wants to put up a fight for identity and show that someone still cares. Anne Pigalle, welcome to Windows on the World.
Bonjour, Mark.
Bonjour, the Last Chanteuse. So, Anne, you were at a very strange gig last night, weren't you?
Yeah, but I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that.
Well, it's Sunday morning, yes. Yeah.
It was very interesting. It was a kind of tribal, queer, a ritual which is supposed to mix
Right, that's enough of that. We're not having anything like that on Windows on the World.
Sexual and spiritual energy.
Oh, that's all right then.
Together,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which is really seems to be the problem of the world. You know, everybody seems to be in a straight jacket. You know, especially the people are at the top, and they feel so bad that they have to try to control things. You know, so us, our artists, the role is to make them feel a little bit better. That's why I titled this album Madame Sex, because not being a young chicken anymore, you know, I think I kind of know a couple of things, and I think there's still a stigmatization about sex, you know, in this country, and so I think I can bring a little bit of help in this kind of difficult times where everything's, you know, I mean, if money is tight, it means that people are going to get tight too. And the problem is that people are kind of tight, you know, and so they want to make the money scarce, you know. And the problem really starts there, you know. If people don't feel good with themselves, they want everybody else to feel bad, you know. So for me, the problem starts with a personal, you know, understanding of oneself, and the sexual element, you know, when I deal with sex, it's not really sex. I deal with the rapport between people.
Yes.
You know, because sex is.
That's because you're a French chanteuse. We are going to go to our first, our next caller, not our first caller.
Okay.
Anne.
Next caller.
Hold back.
Okay.
Hold back just a bit.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next caller is Joe.
Hi.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, great show, fantastic stuff.
Thanks.
Listen, I don't know if I'm taking you away from the subject you're on, but could somebody explain how to make Organite? It's amazing stuff. And
yeah.
Oh, it's simple.
Okay, well, we'll just go quickly over to Mark here.
Yeah, there's tutorials on YouTube. Basically, you start with a muffin tin, and you buy some resin, which is pretty easy to use. It's 2 ingredients, mix them together with waste metal shavings. You can get it from a machine shop free, and a quartz pebble or a crystal pebble or something even more elaborate like a amethyst or some other rock. But you can use them, and the most basic ugly ones, which you use in the garden, you bury them. The one on the extreme right. There are prettier ones which are getting towards you. So they don't have to be pretty to be functional.
Yeah, I've got some of these ones at home. These ones here.
Well, there's an artist here by the name of Martin Sexton who's using them in his exhibition recently.
Oh, him?
Yeah.
Yes, my fault.
so do you place these up?
Sorry, Joe, what was that?
These around the house?
Do you place them around the house?
Yeah, I have them around the house. My back garden just grew massively because of it. The trees are now kind of growing and touching together where they weren't before. Another bizarre phenomena, and again, this relates to the ancient sites. Now, I did a lecture up at the Liverpool Biennale spin-off lecture series, and we sent a box to the organization's office, and people were taking them. I mean, there's a good box, so we didn't mind, and they had them as paperweights on the desks. But the women were taking them and sitting with them on their laps, and it made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to get up and down a few times during the day, so you have to pick it up. So, like, why? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I was reading some ancient site stories, and apparently there's some stones that women go to and sit upon to become more fertile.
Have you ever heard of this, Anne?
It's very interesting. You should tell me more about it.
Right.
Maybe you could put this into your act, you see.
Yeah.
Organite.
Well, Kate Bush has.
Exactly. Was that the Cloudbusters video?
Cloudbusters, yeah.
That's right. Do you remember that, Anne?
No.
No.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think it had Donald Sutherland in, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So Anne, you've been performing for quite a number of years, haven't you? You started off in the 80s, didn't you?
Yeah, I started up in the 70s. I grew up with punk, you know, and to me that demonstrated that 8 people could change the world. Even, you know, if now that has died down a bit, I mean, you know, it's in museums, so obviously it died down. You know, so something else needs to happen to kind of wake people up a bit. You know, if 8 people
I think something that needs to happen now to wake people up. So, I mean, as far as performance goes, I mean, you're still doing this kind of do-it-yourself. This is why I invite you on the show. I really like what you do.
They're never going to make me shut up. That's never going to happen.
I've never been able to make you shut up. That's for sure.
But you like my conversation.
I do like your conversation.
You know. It's just the way it is, you know, I mean, business record companies, they know about business, but they have the feeling that they know about music too. Well, no. musicians are the one who create that. They're the one who create a music, and they're the one that should do it. You know, today in the corporate world, they choose a puppet, and they pay 100 people to actually steal ideas from musicians, you know, and creative people, and they stick them on their puppet. And it only works for people that really want to swallow stupidity. But in reality, it doesn't make people feel good, you know. It just makes people buy something.
Correct.
And music is a spiritual thing, you know. So they should make money with music, not money with money. And so I'm a musician. My father was a jazz a musician, you know, like Django Reinhardt things. So I actually like music.
You're keeping the tradition alive. So we've got ancient technology, to corporatization of the music business. This is Windows on the World. We've got a bit of time left. 0203 714 2700. Sorry?
Then I have to sing.
You have to sing. Give us 2 lines. Come on.
Okay, this little poem song from Madame Sex is called Over the Top, and it goes like that. Dressed up in kimono and a whip in my hand, didn't you say you liked it when it hurts a little? And the air is the one you've learned to appreciate, and the touch is the one you've learned to recognize. Over the top, darling, please give it to me. Slow down to rush and hurry to linger. I cannot anymore contain all my anger. Show us the energy, give me the ecstasy.
It's a kind of very sort of risque.
No, that's
vibe, isn't it?
That's the most mild poem of the entire Madame Sex CD. You know, I paint each little cover individually.
Yeah.
You know, it's just all done by me. The music, the packaging, and this is your Christmas gift, Mark.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much.
And anybody who respects themselves should get one, because they learned a little bit more, not about pornography. I do make a difference.
We understand that,
you know,
Anne.
okay.
You're allowed to lie around half naked smoking because you're French. Yes. Madame Sex, hand-painted by Anne Pigalle.
Yes.
Available from annepigalle.com.
Yes, and also it's part of the rewards for the fundraiser. You know, most of the things. It's
Just
all things
quickly wrap up with that, Anne, about the fundraiser.
Yeah, I do myself. Well, you know, I'm going to do it myself. I've already recorded this album with a big name producer, and just because I have a big name, they think they kind of know it all. Well, no, I'm sorry. You know, I grew up with music. It's in my blood. You know, I know what I'm supposed to sing.
And
so
as we know, video killed the radio star.
Oh, don't we know?
We're going to get onto this now, because we're going to talk about Bob Beck's Zapper, because Mark got his Zapper out just before that break, didn't you, Mark? Just to lower the tone.
Yeah, actually, I did. I was on a TV course called documentary filmmaking, and I came up with this idea for a show documentary called Mistress Black and Her Violet Ray. And interestingly, the Violet Ray device is currently on vogue in the S&M community, because it hurts a bit.
To tie in nicely. With
to tie in nicely. And basically what it is the Tesla coil inside, designed by Nikola Tesla, with noble gases inside, which glow purple. Now, what you get off this glowing purple thing is negative ions, RF radiation, deep thermal heating, you name it. There's a whole slew of electrotherapies in there. Now, these things were kind of written off after, well, in the 1930s and during World War II. But you can still find them at car boot sales and on eBay, good old eBay. And certain dominatrixes are still using them. And whether they're actually curing people of their various afflictions, we don't know. But there are a number of glass attachments for it, for every orifice known to the man.
Well, maybe you can swap details with Anne after the show. So we're talking about Organite, and we're going to go to a break in a little while, but just to sum up, those people were using Organite and a thing called a chembuster. Have you ever come across this before?
Yeah, I know someone who has one.
Yeah, I've got one in my back garden, someone gave me.
Yeah.
But can you just explain quickly how it works?
Well, it's basically like an argon. It's basically an argon generator with tubes on. Same basic functionality, but more focused and more directional. So it's basically pollution is positively ion-based.
That's great. Mark, hold that thought. We're going to go to a break. This is Windows on the World, Sunday morning. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Windows on the World on Sunday morning, 0203 714 2700. 0203 714 2700. Please phone in and join us. We have the chanteurs, Anne Pigalle, with her hand-painted latest CD.
The last chanteurs.
That's correct. Yeah. We have Mark Bennett, a researcher, and Stephen Doros, another researcher. Amongst other things, guys, you know, I'm just trying to keep it simple in this last section of the show. We were talking about the telluric energy currents to start with, and the way that rocks can take this energy. Stephen, could you just kind of pick up on that again?
As well as being able to move the lines around, because the rocks have a toroidal energetic flow actually in them themselves, which is the same as certain types of organite. You can actually design organite to create those as well. So that there was experiments done, and I've only just started looking into this, by a chap called Thomas Townsend Brown, who's passed away now, unfortunately. But he started to, he was the first guy to actually realise that all rocks have electrical potential. So you can put a couple of electrical circuits onto a rock, and you can actually measure, there will actually be an energy, a flow of electricity through the rock. It's not connected to any batteries or anything, so there is a flow of energy through the rock. Other dowsers have gone out of sacred sites and they've found rings of energy going up and down rocks. So it appears somehow there is a way to connect the telluric currents with the rocks, with the cosmic alignments of the stars, and how, because from what I believe with orgone as well, if you create it on certain days, when say it's a full moon, you can actually create it, you can make exactly the same piece of orgonite each day, but the strength will change depending on when you've made it. So it's tying everything in together is the next stages. Everybody's got a little bit.
Yeah, that's the it dovetails quite nicely by Andrew Collins' research in the Circle Makers, which I'll put up the page I'm fascinated with, which I want to do the experiment again. The maze, famous maze at Chartres Cathedral, which you probably know about, is a labyrinth of sorts. Yeah. And he had, through I think psychic means, came up with a diagram. Now, I'll hold it still at the right camera and zoom into that. Now, you've probably seen something very similar to this in ancient sites, but also something more recently in the back of a book, specifically in the back of a book so you don't nick it. And you walk through the modern equivalent of Stonehenge, and your alarm will go off if you are nicking it. So the other thing, the fun thing about this is that when he got this thing pattern working, it blew out all the circuits in the house when he started playing music. So maybe Stonehenge is like just the infrastructure, and you need to have music in it, or some sort of, how about a bishop's mitre? You know, the circle coil with the crystal in the middle?
Well, this carries into something where they had the Druids, for instance, Fingal's Cave, where they were meant to have these sort of eternal choirs. In other words, people singing 24 hours a day as a healing or spiritual event, you know, and it was going on all the time. So we know about sound waves and we know what they can do. I mean, Michael Tellinger actually demonstrates. There was a guy, he's dead now, but he was boiling water with sound. Are you familiar with that, Mark?
I recognise the name, but that's about it.
Yeah, Michael Tellinger's the researcher. Yeah, he researches sort of ancient technology.
South African.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, as far as orgone goes, I mean, it originated with this guy William Reich. Can you just give us
it's chi. It's key. And so all these terms that come up and are different throughout history. Yeah. And he was able to manipulate it and package it. I mean, William Burroughs, who I've photographed, when I met him, he was ancient, and he had a grip like a Terminator. I mean, the guy was intensely strong and kept on going. So there are health benefits, and if you start looking at it in this slightly different way, which modern medicine is not even acknowledging, you go, wait a second.
You're talking really about attuning yourself to natural energies, aren't you? Which
is why grounding and so on works for people. And there's devices that function like grounding, Organite enhanced zappers, and a whole range of things.
Is there any way people can protect themselves against sort of electromagnetic frequencies?
Yeah, there's this German device which is sold by dowsers that plugs into your house and turns your entire house and grounding system into a shield of one sort. But people also use Organite, and there's other methodologies to it.
Yeah. So as far as, say like Stonehenge, I mean, you've got these dolerite stones there. They to me would be the conductors. Is that right, Stephen?
I actually think they were the capacitors.
Yeah.
I think the sandstone, the big sandstone ring around it, I think was actually to lock the energy into the right place. But I think with the dolerite, because it's a very para-electric and magnetic rock, it will absorb and take an electrical charge. It won't hold on to it like a battery would, but it will actually absorb it. I think that's why they dragged all the dolerite all the way over there, because it's that particular type of rock.
Yes, because obviously they took it hundreds of miles, didn't they? So and it came.
Did they in fact drag it?
They in fact dragged it.
No, did they drag it?
That's a very interesting point, which ties into what Stephen's talking about. Did they drag it along the ground?
If it was dragged along the ground, it would have pulled these lines with it. Maybe that's why, another reason it was chosen, because it was as far west on the coast.
We've solved the secret of Stonehenge. Phew. Yeah. So Mark.
Yeah, so you're looking at rocks and so on to manipulate energy on the human body and or in space and so on. So my one thought for the day is crowns, useless hats. Maybe they're not designed to be pretty things on top of a queen's head, but actually a function of some sort, a psychic amplifier or a visual representation of an energy that is visible to psychics but not visible to the common man.
Absolutely. I mean, they're dual encrusted, aren't they? And the idea that they're just for they're now for ceremonial purposes. So that goes right back as when ceremonial things were actually important, and they weren't just BBC News basically, and people waiting in carriages.
The idea of a cargo cult is one that I play with a lot, having re-engineered the Ark of the Covenant. Is the idea that there was a technology at one point, and what we have now is like a knockoff Chinese kind of Poundland version of it.
Yeah.
It won't work.
Yeah.
Although if you hold your plastic toy cell phone to your hat, people will think you're using the phone.
Yeah.
So it's the action.
Yes.
So there's a whole slew of technologies like that. You're going, wait a second, what would happen if that actually did something? And the last one I picked up was is the Tibetan prayer wheel.
Yeah.
Now, they have to keep that going to keep the world going.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, why? And then you go, okay, how many people have spinning wheels around, and what do spinning wheels do? Well, electromotors. You have one on your bicycle to get light.
Yeah.
And then you start working from there. Then you take the thing apart, and you go, this actually looks like coiled metal kind of a structure of of an electrical motor.
Yeah.
Almost identical to it, although it's done in paper. So obviously it's not going to work because it's made out of paper.
Yeah.
But the visual representation is the same.
So you're saying that represents something?
A piece of technology.
It's a symbol, basically.
I basically pissed off a Buddhist monk this way. I said, he's spinning his little thing, and he's saying, do you have one of those that work? And he got really upset. I said, yes, but I'm focusing intent. Yeah, I know, but if you turn it on, I mean, the Knights Templars in Scotland say, yeah, we have 3 Arks of the Covenant.
Yeah.
Well, hey, when did you last turn them on?
Yeah.
And what did you use them for? Oh, no, they're sacred. Oh, you can't see them.
Well, this is a very interesting thing as well about ancient technology. You wrote about the Ark of the Covenant, didn't you? I've read something about it being this sort of very dangerous device that Yahweh carried around, killing people, basically.
Yeah, well, if you were to take apart a TV set, the capacitors inside, they're not quite small, could knock you to the floor at least, and not even kill you.
Yeah.
Now imagine one the size of a sofa.
Yeah.
Now you put that inside of the Great Pyramid to charge it up, and you go, wait a second.
But how did the pyramids charge it up? How did they actually get the energy into the pyramid, and what energy was used in the pyramid to actually charge it up in the first place?
That's a good question.
That's the interesting bit, is how they made that.
We're missing the gold pit on the top, for starters.
Yeah.
You have electrostatic potential differential between the ground floor and the top.
Yeah.
The Moray device is something else you want to Google.
Yeah, yeah, I've looked at that.
It has to do with collecting atmospheric ionization and energy.
Yep.
So given the size of the pyramid and considering how flat the desert is, it would be a good point to start collecting that charge just from the atmosphere.
Yep, yep.
Well, it's very interesting because the capstone of the Great Pyramid was meant to be the meteorite, the Ben stone. And there's this great reverence for meteorites, isn't there?
Yeah.
Going back
it's
to
natural mineral. It's
absolutely, yeah.
Natural mineral, and specifically natural iron.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, you have to work with the energy that's available to you naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, think of Organite as a form of windmill. Yeah. If the wind's not blowing, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, because Jacob's Pillow was again meant to be made out of meteorite rock, wasn't it?
I wasn't aware.
I think so, yeah. So it would explain why these things are carried around, not just as objects of reverence, but from some practical use.
Well, back to the supernatural part. The best footage I've ever seen of ghosts was taken at a haunted house on a dark and stormy night, which is the plot line to every horror story that you have.
Yeah.
But they didn't say it was a dark and raining night.
Yes.
They said stormy night, so it hasn't actually peaked.
Yeah.
So take a voltmeter, put it on the outside of a building on a dark and stormy night, and you'll find the positive ion ratings just like off the roof.
Yes.
So keep in mind that you put the Ark of the Covenant in your Holies of Holies, the tabernacle. It has a charged atmosphere.
Well, it's very interesting because a lot of this ties in with this time of the Shekinah, which is Venus and Mercury conjunct in the sky, and this was meant to have something to do with the Ark of the Covenant and the placing of it at the time of this holy Shekinah, so it would shine on it. I mean, all this stuff all this astrological stuff ties in with the energetic side as well. So it's very interesting that you've got this kind of, mainly people go, oh, Stonehenge, the solstice.
Yeah.
But what about all year round? What's the point of just having it for a couple of days a year? There's no point, is there? This is what Brian Forster was saying about these megalithic sites in Peru on the top of mountains. You wouldn't carve up the whole top of a mountain just for an astrological alignment, would you?
Look at the question of why is Apollo and so on top of a mountain? Why are the mysterious Chinese immortals on top of mountains? Why is Rennes-le-Château on top of a mountain?
Yeah. Well, they all are.
What's the indicator there?
Yeah.
The indicator there for me is the red soil, which is highly iron.
Well, we'd love to go into the mysteries of the Knights Templar on a future show, because that's another very, very interesting area, especially where the Jacob's Pillow ended up, because that's alleged to have been obviously still in Scotland, a lot of people believe. And Scotland's a huge part of this, with the especially you've got the Hebrides and the Shetland Islands, which there is a theory that they were shattered by this comet about 3,000 years ago, and Britain was part of Atlantis. I mean, there's all these theories out there. The problem is we've got a lot of theories. I mean, the stuff we've been talking about today is quite practical. We're talking about Organite. We're talking about things that can realign you physically and mentally. And basically keep your awareness open. I think a lot of this is about keeping that natural awareness that we have, which is what dowsing's about. It's not about thinking, it's just about awareness, opening yourself up.
So just to finish off, the guy, Michael Persinger in Laurentian University, was doing some very interesting experiments. He could generate telepathy on demand through electrical charges across the temporal lobe. Telepathy on demand. Now, if you were able to induce that because of where you are, what sacred spot you're on, that would be a major advantage.
Yeah. Well, this is very interesting. It also goes into another thing we'll discuss on future shows called binaural beats, which are two frequencies that make a third pulse, which have an effect on the brain pattern.
Lo-fi.
Yeah.
So anyone with a drum kit could do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Indeed, Mark. So, well, we've had a great debate today, and we've touched on quite a lot of subjects. We've tried to give a lot of information here, and we will be coming back to that. I'd just like to thank everybody who's been on the show, and Pigalle. And you just want to...
My last word is...
Your last word?
Yeah, I need the last word, and
You want the last word?
Yeah, music is good for you, so don't take it out of the equation.
We won't do that, Anne.
No, you won't, but they're doing it.
Yes, that's very true.
And that doesn't...
Well, they're taking real music out of the equation.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's no music. It's all image, you know, that there's no creation, you know, it's not... Music is spiritual, it makes you feel good. That's how it came in the first place.
That's part of the energy-raising vibration of the ancients.
I mean, music is very therapeutic, you know. In a lot of cases, they actually use it, you know, to heal people, you know. And they've changed a lot in the way records are made by this kind of people, you know. They change the way it's made, so it doesn't make you feel good, you know. It's been...
Absolutely. This is one of the things that's happened, is that music's got worse. So
and they changed the beat, you know, and the way it's made. So
we're just going to let's go on to Mark now to finish up.
I'm finished.
Okay, all right. No, this is Windows on the World. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much. My name's Mark Windows. See you next Sunday. Thanks to Anne, Mark, and Stephen.
A kiss to